we're going to focus on Gayle. So hello, Gayle. Why don't you give us a little introduction?
Hi, Devin. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you. So, hi, everybody. I'm Gayle Gruenberg. I am the Chief Executive Organizer of Let's Get Organized, based in Northern New Jersey. And I've been doing this since 2003. So I'm happy to share my expertise with you all.
Amazing. We have, I know of at least one other bold entrepreneur we have in here who is in Northern New Jersey. I think he's in Asbury Park. But Marvin, who's a videographer and just like super badass in that area, is in very close to you, I believe. So anyway, let's get started. Thank you for being here. I want to know, I have some questions I'll weave throughout, but we'll just kind of chat today. So I want to know about what type of outcomes your client, what do your clients come to you with? And then what are kind of like their problems and challenges? And then who are they and what do they get out of working with you? Just so we understand your profession.
Yeah, well, there's a lot in that. Okay, so I'll preface in that I am a certified professional organizer in chronic disorganization, meaning that I specialize in working with clients who have a brain-based condition that affects their ability to organize. And that might be ADHD, it might be depression, anxiety, bipolar, OCD, the whole alphabet soup of the mental health realm. And I love working with my clients because what they bring to the table is such rich experience and a different perspective from the way that my brain works. So they stimulate me as much as I like to think that I help them. And some of the thank you. Something I actually have like the LGO promise, the Let's Get Organized promise. It's I love the whole 7 C's concept. So if you don't mind, I'm happy to read them to you.
Yeah.
The biggest one is control over the environment. A lot of people come to me saying, oh my God, I'm so disorganized. My space is a complete mess. Like, okay, so I'm going to help you with that. And we take it on and we just go piece by piece until we create systems. With that, they get clarity of the mind.
Yeah.
They gain confidence in who they are. They feel calm in their souls. They get to make choices about what they own and what they do. They tend to take better care of their bodies, and overall they see life changes.
That's amazing, Gayle. I think I can attest to, I'm an entrepreneur with bipolar and ADHD. And so my brain is constantly loving disorganization, but it also doesn't. I don't thrive in the disorganization. My brain's always there. So I can attest to how having that neater space and having more systems and all of that, that kind of really goes into organization just makes for such a, it makes for a more peaceful cognitive environment and like intellectual environment, and just makes honestly the day to day so much easier and so much cleaner and more functional. So thank you for what you do, first of all, because we all need that, I think.
My pleasure.
Why does this, you already alluded to it a little bit, but why do you feel so much fulfillment from this type of work that you do? And where did it come from also? 2 questions.
Like the fulfillment or how I got to be an organizer?
Both, yeah.
Well, the way I got to be an organizer is I used to be a CPA, a certified public accountant, and I found it rather stifling. I was in 3 walls of a cube going, I have no idea what season it is, let alone what day of the week. And it was total misery for me. So I decided to make a change. And a former colleague had said, you know, Gayle, you're pretty organized. I think you'd make a really good professional organizer. Like, oh yeah. Smart enough. Gotta do it. This is my calling. So long story short, within 12 hours of launching, I had a pro bono client, and the rest kind of is history. And it's been a long history, as you can tell.
Yeah.
And why is it so fulfilling? Because I feel that I get to work with some of the most amazing people on the planet, whether it's in person or virtually. I get to meet awesome people who bring so much to the table and are so smart and so gifted and so talented at what they do best. They allow me to do what I do best. And we develop this beautiful relationship that just feeds both of our souls.
Yeah.
I really get a lot of fulfillment out of seeing a transformation in a space, or knowing that a client or a friend/client is moving forward in life, and has tools to take on or address whatever challenges they might be facing.
Yeah. That is amazing. This is to the second part, but also the first part of what you mentioned. I think it's so interesting, and I bet you do this as well, how sometimes the best and biggest and brightest and most creative ideas are really bred from misery. Challenging situations, right?
Yes.
And not only challenging on like our mind and our intellect, but really our mental health and our joy, ultimately. And I'm curious, I love that you had a catalyst. I did too, for when I switched into business and entrepreneurship. And I used to be a medical speech pathologist, and I found that it was not for me because of the limitations that it imposed on me. And so therefore I continued to get more and more depressed as I went on. And I'm bipolar, so of course I already deal with depression. And so that was just adding to that chronic turmoil, I'll say. And so someone also said to me, well, I was already doing, back in the day, I was already doing like accountability calls and sessions with people just for free, just because I really loved it and was into personal development. And then what I was talking to someone one day, and they were like, do you charge for those? Because you should be. And I started looking into coaching and accountability and professional development and the types of things that coaches could bring into the world. And I realized that it was actually a business. You can make a business out of doing exactly what both of us are doing, is helping people streamline what's going on in their brains, support their brains so that they can create a more fulfilling environment, ultimately in different ways, of course, between us, but and a more joyful life. So I really appreciate what you do. And I think that even though it's a challenging and really sometimes painful experience to go through the misery first, it can it can birth so many amazing things.
Yes. And if you just reminded me, I recently downloaded the app Headspace for meditation.
Yes.
And there was a quote that came through at some point in one of my meditations, that difficult paths can lead to beautiful destinations.
Yes.
And I actually have that pop up on my screen every day.
That's so beautiful. I love that. If you haven't, this is totally random, but if you haven't used Insight Timer, it's amazing. I'm a teacher on Insight Timer, a meditation teacher on there. And it's also really, really powerful because I have events on there too. If Headspace has been supporting you, Insight Timer would too, just so you know. And anyone else who's listening. All right, Gayle, so let's hear, I want to know about one lesson, probably one of the biggest lessons that you've learned in being a business owner, whether it was through challenges or successes.
Wow. A lesson.
Or knowledge that you've gained at the very least.
Oh gosh, there's been so much. Of course, there's technical knowledge. This is now 19 years in business. I've learned so much about the mental health space, which is actually why I decided to focus on chronic disorganization, because I just love the brain science. So I learned that, as well as, how to run a business and how to, grow myself from the inside out. So if I were to pinpoint one thing in particular, I would say just listen. One of my favorite quotes is, I have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth, used proportionately. Because the clients will tell me what they need to learn.
They do. They do, even if they're saying, we take, that's really cool. We take very different information out of what our clients are telling us at the same time. I don't know if you've noticed this, but like, I find that someone will come to me with one problem and I'll take away from it something kind of entirely different, really the root of what they need to work on to solve this one problem. So it's not necessarily true that all our clients come in knowing exactly what it is that's causing the chronic disorganization and all that. But I think it's really interesting how we as professionals can piece apart the actual like root cause of what's going on. So thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I want to know if you can share like one or two tips to get started with our audience, because I mentioned to you privately, but we have a lot of bold entrepreneurs who have ADHD and some sort of executive dysfunctioning in here, and just straight up chaotic and busy lives because we're business owners. So to all of these people, and you can speak to one specific population, if you will, or everyone, what do you find would be a really supportive starting tip?
Okay, I have several thoughts. And the
Amazing.
first, thank you. Right off the bat, I would say start small. Yeah, because I think we all have these grand expectations of ourselves, including me, that, oh yeah, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And then it's like, oh my God, I'm getting pulled in all directions and it's shiny objects. Right. So if it's possible to just maybe chunk out something in a small section, like even 5 minutes, if you can steal 5 minutes of focused time to do one tiny thing, you'll see that it will actually move you forward.
Yeah.
And, whatever it is, it doesn't matter where you start, as long as you start. There are techniques in the organizing world, like put up a paper towel tube to your eye, and whatever your eye falls on, start with that if you're organizing.
That's so fun.
Yeah, and I cannot take credit for that. Judith Kohlberg, who is the doyenne of chronic disorganization, she's just the best. And definitely use your natural tendencies. If it makes sense to hop from thing to thing to thing to thing, that's okay. There's no shame. Thou shalt not beat thyself up is my number one commandment. Because ultimately, even if you hop, you will still come back to the other things, and you'll fill in the pieces in the puzzle, and it will get done.
That's really, really interesting. I love that you said that. There's two things that I want to add or bounce off of this, but I love that you said that, because I think, actually, I know because of all the co-working calls that I do in here, that so many of the people in this group kind of get caught up in the trap of like, well, when I'm cleaning my apartment, I bounce from room to room to room, and it's almost like I'm not getting anything done because it's chaotic in our minds. And so I really appreciate that you basically just gave everyone permission to be doing that, because that's just the way that our brains work. And so if it is effective for us and the house eventually gets clean, then why not use that ultimately skill or strength, we could even call it, you could definitely call it, to our advantage.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing that, because I really do think that is really allowing people to embrace that side of themselves. The other thing I wanted to say, I don't know if you've heard this quote before, but it's a Simon Sinek quote, who is, I want to say he's a leadership professional, and then he started as like a marketing professional, but then he branched into corporate leadership, and I absolutely love him. He was the first person I followed in the personal development space. And he says, dream big, start small, but most of all, start.
I love it.
And that, what you said in the beginning really, really reminded me of that, because it is so true. Just start, because it gets the momentum going. Totally.
No
Yeah.
balls.
Love that. Okay, that was a great tip. Is there anything, knowing is there anything else that you feel is important to share that's just coming up to you
Yes.
around mental health or personal life for the entrepreneurs in this group? Kind of knowing who they are a little bit.
Yes. As we were just chatting, I was thinking I'd like to reframe the diagnosis of ADHD.
Oh,
Oh, thank you. Because I've heard and I've worked with clients and I've read and seen that when someone receives a diagnosis of ADHD, they get really down on themselves and think like,
yeah,
oh, God, what the hell? Like, oh,
yeah,
this is like a death knell. Like, no, you have been handed a gift.
yeah,
My experience with people who live with ADHD is that it is such a blessing, because those of us with very linear brains, I think we're kind of boring. We live inside the box. That's how we think. We think very linear. Whereas people who have ADHD have this amazing ability to think outside the box, see the
100%. Yeah,
super creative. Like you all can think on different planes at the same time. So whereas it might feel like, oh my God, my head is spinning out of control, like, oh, please, we could pull. I have a graphic actually that is like me pulling out the thread of the spinning brain, trying to unravel.
mm-hmm.
Being able to think that way and be so creative and innovative is like the whole world has benefited from people who have and have had ADHD.
Yeah. I think that's magical. And I relate to so much of what we're talking about today because I have 2 diagnoses and I know so many people who have diagnoses. And it takes a lot of mental energy to see the gifts in these diagnoses and to also separate from the identity, them being your identity. And so I want to, Gayle, I just think you'd be really interested in reading this. I wrote this like a year ago, but I'm going to post the blog in the group. So if you want to read it, but it's all about separating from the identity. And honestly, I haven't read it since 2001. So I'm curious if I'd still agree with some of the things I wrote in that blog post. But if it yields any like professional or a personal insight for your clients, amazing. But anyway, it can be so hard to not identify as your diagnosis or your disability. And that's one of the words that I don't love is disability, because yes, clinically our diagnoses are considered disabilities, but we are given so many other abilities because our brains work so differently. And I've seen without a shadow of a doubt how creative and excitable and what's the word I'm looking for? Innovative by entrepreneurs with bipolar or ADHD or I don't know, other diagnoses. I can't think of anything else right now. Generalized anxiety disorder, even. Our brains just go to different places and we can be so outside of the box. And so I love that you mentioned that too. I think that's really, really great. There's a really big blessing in being diagnosed with some sort of mental health disorder or diagnosis, I prefer to call it. You've shared so many great tidbits today and I think really profound insights. Because I think in this interview, you've given a lot of people permission to see themselves in a powerful and more empowered way and to do life in a more empowered way. So just let us know what's the best way to reach you if we're interested in working with you, if we're interested in simply connecting or interviewing you on a podcast or whatever. How can people reach you best?
Well, I do have a New Jersey-based phone number, which is 201-613-2733. And the
Right.
Let's Get Organized website is lgorganized.com.